Space is a very important film to software engineers.
Gotcha.
You may remember Oliver Stone released Platoon in the 1980s, and Vietnam veterans attended Platoon, and they came out holding each other in tears,
right.
feeling that our story has finally been told, and feeling that the country now knew what they had been through.
Gotcha.
And I and my colleagues felt much the same way when Mike Judge released Office Space.
Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
All right, before we start this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, if you are new to the YouTube channel, please click the subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, so you get notified when we do put some new shows out. And I appreciate you guys being here and watching the show. If you're listening to the show, certainly subscribe to the podcast version of the show as well, because I know I've been watching and there's actually been a spike in the podcast downloads, so I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys are here, and if you like the show, I hope you share it with one of your friends. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today, we are in the home state of Massachusetts. I am in Weston, Massachusetts, and I have John Kolis from Pistol Practice. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Charlie.
Let's go. So we're going to a range that I've never been to. We're leaving your home range, which is the Weston Shooting Club, which is a pretty swanky place, I got to tell you.
Probably the nicest shooting range in greater Boston, certainly, if not Massachusetts.
I love that you walk in and it smells like cigars.
That is a good smell sometimes, and other times it's too much.
Right, I hear you, but it's nice. I dig it. I dig it. So I found out about you through one of my good friends, Amanda Suffolk.
Yes.
She said that you were on with Rob Beckman. And that she's like, hey, there's a guy that's in your area. He's an instructor. He's got a book. You should have him on the show. So I'm very much what Amanda does. What Amanda says I should probably do.
She's great. This is what's been just such a wonderful, positive experience for me, is that the firearms community, everyone is so supportive and helpful to one another. So one of my mentors is Doreen Hankins in Detroit, Michigan. And her husband has a platform called Cloud Bedrock, which is where I host my e-learning courses. And Doreen said, you need to meet Rob Beckman. And so I did the Firearm Trainers podcast, and that was just great. Rob's a super supportive guy, and it was a fun experience for me. And then he said, hey, you should meet Amanda. So I got on the phone with Amanda, and then shortly after that, Amanda said, you need to meet Charlie Cook. He's out by you. And so we've been hanging out since.
I love this, man. So this is what when you say that the gun community is tight-knit, Amanda likes to talk about how we have the Olympic rings.
Right.
And what she means is the people in the blue ring aren't connected to the people in the green ring, but they know the blue ring people know some red ring people, and the red ring people know the green ring people. And
that's a good metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So it's interesting to me that it's interesting to me that I will know people that don't know other people, and I'm surprised that they don't know the other people. So it's great to get all of our circles together. One of the things that I wanted, one of the objectives, was to increase my circle of friends and to make the people that I knew a bigger circle. So
the only downside for me is that so many of us are spread across the country.
Oh my gosh.
I want to get on the road to meet these people. I'm hoping a lot of the USCCA instructors will be at the expo in September, and I can buy them a drink, because everyone's been so helpful at networking, helping me grow my business, or just getting good advice about engaging with the non-2A community, right? And how do we best go about that?
Right.
And keep the conversation positive and engaging.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, so gun folks are great people. And I've had nothing but great, wonderful experiences. The show I filmed a show with Rob Beckman in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in 2021. We were both taking a Mag 40 class. And so we were all staying at the same hotel. So what I did is I filmed a segment with Rob. Rob and I carpooled every day. We filmed a segment every morning, which was pretty cool. And then we get to some point where Masada Ayub says, so everything from here on out is proprietary, and you can only get when they take a class from me. So what I did in the video, I don't know if you saw this, but what I did in the video is I'm like, so masses, we can't talk about this. So what we talked about was, and then I went to the stars and bars of the television's been disconnected and shut off. Okay. So that was pretty funny. So we didn't talk about it, but we just teased it a bit. Anyway, so it's it's all good stuff. All good stuff. All right. So how did you become a gun guy? I got to tell you, when I found out about you and you've got a book, I saw that it's the 3rd edition of the book. Right. I'm like, how can I be in Massachusetts and do what I'm doing and not run into John Kolis?
Oh, well, it's the rings metaphor, I guess.
Sure.
Well, it's really exploded for me in the last few years. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people of my generation, you grew up shooting a 22 in the woods. You shot a 22 at summer camp, or you went shooting in the woods with your dad. I have the fondest memories of that. My father grew up in Brooklyn, New York in the 1930s, and he was eager for us to grow up farther away from the city.
Sure. So
we moved around a bit, and the first time I shot his 22 rifle was when we were living in upstate New York, outside of Guilderland. And I still have that rifle. It's a beautiful Remington. I think it's a model 5.51 semi-automatic. And back then when I was learning how to shoot that rifle, I mean, The Rifleman was on TV, Daniel Boone was on TV, and marksmanship was an admired quality.
Oh yeah.
If a man or a woman was proficient with a firearm and was a great marksman, everyone admired that. There's no social frowning on it. And so why did my dad, a kid from Brooklyn, New York, own a rifle? And it's because sometime in the 1950s, he was salesman of the month, and his company gave it to him as a prize. And I just think, I was a top performer when I was in technology for the last 30 years, and my employer never gave me a gun.
Right. That's
so
how the time
clearly
changed.
Mid-century men, had a good life, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
no kidding.
they could smoke in the office. They had a bar in their office, and their company gave them guns. It was how ATF really should be handled, I think. So I remember setting up cans in the log with my dad, and back then the cans had a steel rim, so when you shot them, they really reacted.
Yeah.
And it was great. And my dad would give me the gun after the session and say, "Go clean it." You gave a rifle to a 10-year-old. You weren't worried about him not being responsible. In fact, it made me proud. It developed a sense of responsibility. So the years go on. I joined the Air Force. I'm shooting here and there with friends now and again. Sometimes rifle, sometimes handgun. But then you get busy raising kids, and shooting fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
I did other things like coach my son's soccer team and got into astronomy.
Yeah.
Non-shooting activities.
Right. I had to coach soccer. I'm not a sports guy, but I had to coach soccer for my kids. And it was one of these things where the lady that was running the soccer club, right? She and I were friends. Our kids were both in Scouts, which I also led. And she said, "I need someone to coach the soccer team." And I'm like, "I don't know anything about soccer." And she's like, "Here, just watch this DVD." So I watched the DVD, I took notes, and I'm like, the only thing I know about soccer is you can throw it in. You obviously can't touch the ball, but when you throw it in, it's two hands over your head, and you have to have both feet on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's all I really know about soccer.
I also, you and I were both in band.
Yes.
In school, and that's all your viewers really need to know. about our athletic prowess.
Right.
Right. I joined the crew team in high school as soon as I heard there were no cuts.
Oh my God.
That was my reason for joining crew,
Right.
because there's no cuts, and you just had to have grit, and quit wasn't in you, and that was me, and that's what I did. And I'm very fond of my crew memories, and
Right.
it contributed a lot to my development.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So when my son is turning 10, my daughter's about 7, I'm thinking, when I was Jack's age, I was shooting a rifle, and I still have that rifle. I would take it out occasionally and oil it just to make sure it was in good shape, but I hadn't shot it in a long time.
Yeah.
So, I said I want to share that experience with my son and my daughter. And so I looked into getting my Massachusetts LTC, and then I became acquainted with Massachusetts gun laws. I became confused with Massachusetts gun laws,
Right.
which is synonymous for acquainted in our state.
I always tell people when I'm teaching class, if you're confused by me talking about the gun laws, I'm explaining it well.
Right. I kind of resent having to preface my instruction about Massachusetts laws with "I'm not a lawyer."
Right.
And even when you go to mass.gov/firearms laws and they summarize it, there's a disclaimer at the bottom of the page referring you to an attorney, because this is just provided as a courtesy.
Jeez.
I'm like, well, if the Commonwealth thinks it's a courtesy,
Right.
If
If they can't explain it to us,
right.
why do we have to hire an attorney?
So, got my LTC, joined a local rod and gun club, which is a wonderful experience, met great people, and it had a lot of things that's the Concord Rod and Gun Club. It's a wonderful facility in Concord, Massachusetts, 65 acres. It has a pond with bass. It has boats, trap, 5-stand, archery, and a small indoor pistol range. So that's where I told myself, I really want to develop proficiency with a handgun. I'd shot on and off over the years, but I wanted to get proficient. And I kind of had a knack for it. And I'm a diligent student. So I took courses. I studied at SIG Academy. I joined IDPA. And I just practiced all the time. And I started taking people to the range. And then I'm like, well, I want to be a responsible citizen. And if I'm taking people to the range, I should become an NRA instructor, so at least I know I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
And so that was my path. And it's grown over the last 15 years. And then when the technology employer decided that my services were no longer required 3 years ago, I've been all in. And it was stressful at the time, to get laid off with kids in college, but you never know, right? It's cliche, but one door opens, one
closes.
one closes, one opens.
Yeah.
I guess that's the better way to do it. And
right.
it's been wonderful. I've just been able to immerse myself in something I care about. Should I ramble on about how the book grew out of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the idea for the book really started about 7 years ago, because
let's talk about your book.
Sure.
You're going to hold this up while I drive. Hold it up to the screen. We'll put an image on there as well.
Pistol Practice, the shooting range guidebook that teaches you how to practice. As I was going to the range regularly, I would watch other people at the range, and I noticed a pattern of behavior. They load all their magazines to capacity. Yep. They hang up whatever target the club provides, which is typically the NRA small bore target.
Right.
And they send it down range, and they blast away until they've run out of ammo. They appear to be permanent members of the Low Left Society. And
the Low Left Society.
Well, I think there's a great YouTube video someone made about that. It's not my original phrase.
All right.
And so I thought, well, they don't seem to have any structure to their practice. They're not varying their targets. They're not conserving ammo, so they're not improving, which means they're not having fun at the range. They're plateauing, going home.
Right.
And now they've got a gun at home that they're not proficient with.
Yeah, they're just turning money into less.
So I started, the germ of an idea for a book came to me, and I said, I'm not going to write a book on how to shoot, because there's NRA champions, IPSC champions, Navy SEALs, and people with far more real-world shooting experience than me who can teach you how to shoot.
Right.
But I've spent a lifetime coaching and mentoring staff, developing plans and projects and organizational structure, and so I worked on creating a body of knowledge that would give people a method for how to practice. And my goal was to make it fun, because if it's not fun and engaging, you're not going to want to do it.
You're not going to do it, sure.
It's like Weight Watchers. It's not fun, right? It's got to be safe,
Of course.
and it should provide for incremental improvement, not just be one and done.
Right.
So, pistol practice is 20 chapters of exercises, challenges, and drills that get progressively more challenging as you follow the training rubric from upper left to lower right. That's when you look at the score sheet. So, a beginning shooter can take one of the drills and start in the upper left, which is going to be dominant side, two hands, close in.
Right.
But an advanced intermediate person would look at that like that's trivial. And I'll say, well, that's fine. And you can do it from holster draw.
Right.
Right? Or you can do it, with your weak side. So there's something there for everybody. And my initial vision was that the book is everything you need. It includes the drills, the score sheets, and the targets. So you can just tear the target out or photocopy it,
Right.
and you're good to go. Which dictated the format be 8.5 by 11, and the book weighed a pound, right? And as I evolved and I refined it, I shrunk it down to 6 by 9, so it's only 8 ounces, fits in your range bag.
Yep.
But then you scan the QR code to download the score sheets and targets.
Yeah.
So it's been very popular. I'm just thrilled with the engagement from shooters and instructors.
That's very cool. I thought the way you laid the book out was really, really well. Because you've got, on the score sheets, you've got all your different distances you're shooting, or the different course of fire. And then you have a little column for shooting with dominant two hands, dominant one hand, non-dominant,
Right.
Non-dominant two hands, non-dominant one hand, which is really cool. And I think over the past couple of years, for me personally, I've gotten to the habit of just shooting with my dominant hand, and then when you see something that's like, oh hey, don't forget your non-dominant hand, you're like, oh yeah, I should be doing that too.
Or the other technique I love, and I use this with clients all the time, is use snap caps or dummy rounds. Okay, take 4 magazines. Load one with all live ammo.
Yep.
Load them to different levels and insert an occasional dummy round somewhere in the stack. Then shuffle your magazines.
That's a good idea too. That's a good idea for someone that's practicing by themselves. Because if you've got, if you're at the range with a friend, you can have them load magazines. You load each other's magazines. You don't know where the rounds are, but if you're by yourself, you can load them up and then swap them around.
But we can use snap caps to either diagnose anticipating recoil. Right, that's a great way to break yourself of the habit of jerking the trigger is to, use snap caps. But when I use them mixed into a magazine stack, it forces the malfunction, and we develop that pattern of tap, rack, and roll.
Right.
And it's a good skill building exercise. Too often we all just practice what we know. Dominant side, 2 hands, right, with a standard target. And I have found that the slightest variation in the routine can throw somebody off.
Oh, sure.
Right? take someone who's shooting like, let's call it ABCD, like they're shooting A's, they're shooting in the 90s, and now suddenly you say, well, I want you to start shooting when the beep goes off. That just frazzles people.
Right, because now they got to think about something else.
Right. Or put up 2 targets
Yeah.
and do transitions. So no, it's been a lot of fun, and you learn a lot trying to build a small business and reach out to people you've never spoken to before. But again, I can't say enough good things about our 2A community.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had a bad experience yet. I haven't jumped on a phone call, a Zoom, or even an email, and people are engaging and supportive.
Yeah, they really are. I remember before I started riding shotgun, for sure, I had a friend of mine who said I should talk to a local business guy to become my mentor, and I was like, I can't call up a complete stranger and ask him. She's like, you should call him up and ask him for coffee and kind of pick his brain on some stuff. I'm like, I can't call up a complete stranger and ask him out for coffee. So now what I do is I call up complete strangers and ask them to get in the car with me.
And you don't have to lure them with candy or anything.
I don't have. I don't have to. I lure them with ammo. Right.
That's good.
And stickers, hey. Oh my gosh.
But then, having been on the receiving end of that, and at this point in my life, my immediate inclination is, how can I pay it forward? How can I pass on what I've learned?
Yeah.
Again, Doreen Hankins at Detroit Arms, she has this webinar that they do on the Pew Pros group on Facebook called Butts and Seats, and it's how do you fill your class? Because giving Mark Zuckerberg your money for Facebook ads isn't going to pay off. There's no ROI
It's
there.
not. There
No.
isn't. I did an ad a couple years ago. I tried running some ads on Facebook, and it never worked out.
No.
Never worked out.
And my screen name is Pistol Practice, so just my name alone blocks me.
Right, it's going to send a flag.
Right. No, but Doreen coaches you through that, and she coaches you about managing your Google profile, which is probably the best thing firearms instructors can do, is make sure you have a Google business page, manage your profile. So I learned that from her. It had an immediate positive impact on engagement I was receiving locally. And then when I'm working with my affiliates around the country, I immediately, offer that advice and coaching to them, and will help them get set up. So
that's really cool. Really cool. How are your book sales? How are you selling your book?
I sell the book through my website, pistolpractice.com. A couple of local retailers, Four Seasons Firearms in Woburn, stocks it, as does Cape Gun Works in Hyannis. I discuss it on Facebook. I belong to several, appropriate groups on Facebook. I do advertise an American Handgunner, and that has been positive.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
Again, that was, a FMG, a big publication house, right? But I said, hey, this is new to me. I'm a first timer. I wasn't rebuffed. I was welcomed. They helped me with design of the ad, coached me on placement and cost. It's kind of neat to see your book and get a mention
It's
in a magazine like that.
absolutely.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
So that's fun. So I sell directly, right?
Okay.
I fulfill the orders myself. What has helped me with sales, or I dare say what's been just so rewarding, is that the book has been so well received by instructors. I hoped, the average shooter, the intermediate shooter would say, oh, this is really good. This is going to be fun at the range, or I'm going to go do this with my wife or my brother, right? But the instructors engaging me was the big pivot.
Sure.
So what I started doing is I teach pistol practice, the class, at the Weston Shooters Club in Weston, Mass. And it's framed as this is a class about how to practice. This is a class about getting the most out of your time at the range. People may, have a decent investment in their local gun club, in their ammunition. So let's improve your ROI. A lot of people feel like I've owned a gun for 2 years. I go once a month, but I haven't improved. So the class teaches how to improve your time at the range.
Yeah.
Everyone gets a copy of the book. I introduce them to the book, and it's 50% classroom and 50% live fire.
Mm-hmm.
I do it in about 2 hours. Well, once I had taught that myself here in Massachusetts, well, then instructors from across the country have said, well, can I teach it?
Mm-hmm.
So I have the Pistol Practice Affiliate Instructor Program. So certified NRA and USCCA instructors meet with me. We discuss the opportunity. Then I train them on delivering the class.
Yeah.
And they buy the books in bulk
Mm-hmm.
at a discounted instructor rate.
Right.
So they can then teach the class in their local market, ensuring that everyone gets a copy of the book. It's not dissimilar from the USCCA model, wherein, we all buy the USCCA handbook
Right.
at less than the retail price.
Sure.
So that has grown very well this spring. That's a new thing. I've got 15 affiliates across the country right now.
That's very cool. That is very, very cool. How do you find? Do we talk about how you find clients?
How do I find the affiliates? Or
Yes.
how do I
No. How do you find people that want to take lessons with you? Because one of the things is, for me being an instructor, I know that I got good times and I got other times. Where I'll have people signing up for classes and things will go well, and then I have times where people like, I got to start taking feet pictures. I got to start making some money, right?
Right.
Where I can't get anyone to sign up for a class.
Right.
So how do you find clients to take class? Well, first of all, how do you find them for the for your regular licensing course?
So I'm one of the instructors at the Weston Shooters Club.
Okay.
So I teach there exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
and they set up the classes, and I'm on the calendar. I typically teach Saturday mornings. It's the time slot I like.
Yeah.
And I may meet people in that class, and then they'll train with me
Mm-hmm.
as a follow-on. I have been doing this for a while now, so there is some word of mouth.
Right.
Okay. I haven't had anyone call up and say, "Hey, I found your website. Can I train with you?"
Mm.
That hasn't happened so much. But it's mostly word of mouth, referrals. A lot of local people to Belmont, Weston, where I hang out. They've trained with me, and then especially in the last few years, right? Gun ownership has risen.
Oof, yeah, it has.
Due to social unrest, and let's face it, this is Massachusetts. People are not open about it.
That we have a lot of closet gun owners.
Right? And so people will confide in someone they trust,
Mm.
right? So,
And getting a referral is a great way for someone else to say, hey, listen, I heard you want to do this. I do this. This is where I go. Talk to my
Right.
guy. Yeah.
Right. We were out at dinner with friends, and I ran into a client, a woman who wanted to be able to own a gun, be proficient, right, for her own reasons. And we met at a restaurant. First time we had seen each other, outside of the range.
Right.
And people are like, "Oh, how do you two
How did you meet?
know each other?" And so I flip it to her. I said, "Do you remember?" Because
Right.
I'm not going to out her.
Right. You're not afraid to bring it up. Right.
She's there with the PTA committee. "Oh yeah, what are you up to? 13th, 14th gun now?" So
Right.
I didn't want to do that, so I leave it to them.
Yeah.
But invariably, this is what's surprising, is it's a very positive response, right? This actually happened at a restaurant in Concord. A woman said, "John's my firearms instructor that I told you about." right? Because she'd already told her friend, I've been taking gun lessons, right?
Yeah.
And so then the friend said, I've always wanted to do that. Well, then here's my card, and off we go.
Nice.
Right. That's why when you and I go to like the what is it called? The gun listening tours, right?
The gun listening tours.
Or
yeah.
Even in a local meeting, I'll hear somebody venting about, we don't want guns in our town, kind of a thing. It's all I can do not to stand up and say, I train your neighbors.
Right.
You know? Like, who do you think? I mean,
that's...
Ask the local police department, are applications this year up in your town? The answer will be yes. I'm confident the answer will be yes. But somehow the people think, what? It's not their friends that are buying the guns. It's those people from what? You know, what?
Right.
The bad part of Weston?
The bad part of Weston.
The bad part of Newton? I mean, no, there's not. It's all the same wealthy Massachusetts demographic.
I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I used to listen to 96.9, and they had on Jay Severin, God rest his soul.
Remember him?
I love Jay.
Did he pass?
He did. 2020 he passed. And one of his things, he used to say this all the time, is I forget who it was, but it was some bigwig woman. I can't remember if she was an actor or a politician or something or whatever. But anyway, so she said back in 1980, she says, I don't know how Reagan got elected. Nobody I know voted for Reagan. Right? Nobody I know would be a gun owner. And I've gone from knowing a lot of musicians to becoming a gun guy and having it about 50-50. My friends were musicians and gun guys. And now it's probably 98% of my friends are gun owners. You know?
Because your friends have changed, or because gun ownership has changed?
Mostly because my friends have changed. Right? You start hanging out with a different group of people, and then you find out that, you know, they've got friends that are like-minded and liberty-minded and freedom-minded, and then they start, you know, you introduce them, and then you find out when you're non-gun friends, and let's face it, we've got them. We live in occupied territory. When they find out you're a gun guy, they're like, oh, really? You're one of those guys. I don't know if we can be friends anymore. We don't know if we can be friends because
really
I go shooting, because I pass background checks, because I take safety courses. It seems nuts to me.
It's hard to relate to the mindset.
Yeah, it is. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to hang out with them, right? Because there's the Jim Rohn, you're the culmination of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And when you tell someone that thinks you're crazy for a gun owner, you give them the whole, and they become a parent, then you give them the whole, well, don't you love your children? Wouldn't you do anything for your kids to keep them alive and protect them? And they say, well, of course. Well, are you going to get a gun class, take a class and get a gun license? Well, no, I would never do that. That would be crazy. Well, then you don't really want to take care of your kids. You know? Maybe you don't really want to protect them. And that's fine. I'm not going to force, you know, I love the line that says, I carry a gun not to force my will on others so that others don't force their will on me.
Right.
And if you don't want to do this, that's totally cool. That's totally cool. But don't stop me from doing it.
Well, that speaks to the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I would never spend $4,000 on a bicycle, but I have friends with, you know, what their wheels are made of, what, exotic material or something like carbon fiber. I mean, well, that's their passion. Well, via con Dios, go do that.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
People, I mean, does anyone need a car that can do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds? Those things exist.
Right.
No one needs it.
No one needs it. But if if you want to have it,
it's your pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
As long as your pursuit doesn't harm others, that's the republic we created.
Absolutely.
And it's done very well.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to be able to discuss shooting with people without the political angle. And if they bring it up, I focus on the recreational activity, you know? Like we have 22 Rifle Day once a year for the kids at the Weston Club. Every June we pick a day and we do it. As well as occasionally a parent will come in and want to have a firearms experience for their youth.
Yeah.
Even though it seems everyone gets a trophy nowadays, there's plenty of kids that, athletics isn't their thing.
Oh, sure.
Right? And they feel intimidated on the field hockey field or the soccer or baseball field, and when they come to the range and shoot a bullseye, the smile on their face is priceless. And the parent looks at me with almost tears in their eyes because they realize their kid hasn't had this pattern of learning, applying, and gratification in something outside of, academia. Because sports seems to be the other thing, right? And if the kid's not a great dancer or musician like you, like they're looking for something to feel good about that's outside of a book. I may not be phrasing that in a way that is educationally accurate for some of our listeners, but I've experienced it with these kids, and the look on their face is priceless, and it builds self-esteem.
Yep.
And if it's, of course, done in a safe, controlled environment, who would deny that?
Right.
To the kid.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's to me, it's good, clean fun, and it gives us. I like to call it true diversity. We all don't have to be sports fans. We all don't have to, I don't know, be vegetarians. We all don't have to be shooters. We all don't have to be runners. We all don't have to be bikers. We all don't have to fill in the blank.
But I really have a problem with vegetarians.
Okay.
Hitler was a vegetarian.
Was he?
Whenever someone says I'm a vegetarian, I said, so was
Hitler.
But I use the first name so they'll be more comfortable.
Right? There we go. I love that. I let people do what they want to do and let them mind their own business and let them be that. I think.
I'm also, where I think I'm having fun.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
There's a lot of uber tactical people in our industry, and I'm a veteran, but I wouldn't describe myself as uber tactical.
Right.
And some might read my book and say, well, yeah, John, that's for the recreational shooter, and people need to know self-defense.
That's okay. You can learn that from someone else.
A strong grip is a strong grip. Strong fundamentals are strong fundamentals. Okay. If you haven't been building strong fundamentals, they're not going to magically appear when the shit hits the fan, right? You're not going to become Bruce Willis in the moment. You're going to fall to your level of training.
Yes.
So one approach for me to discussing this with people is make practice fun, make it engaging, make it so the person wants to go back, and they will build those fundamentals. And then, slow is smooth, smooth becomes fast. They'll build up over time. 30% of guns last year were bought by women. And in addition to that metric, we have a lot of first-time gun owners since the chaos of the last few years. If every time they take a class, it feels like it's about life and death. It's about the legal use of force. It's about center of mass. This is where the lungs are. This is,
Right.
It's just mentally exhausting.
Oh, sure.
Okay. And they still are at that point in their journey where they need to build their fundamentals. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Again, pistol practice is seeking to keep it engaging. Let's get this husband and wife that went and bought guns after the kids went to college to go to the range together. Make it a competition. Make it fun. Just get the reps in.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you've got that in parallel with that, or after you have that strong base of fundamentals, well, then you can work on,
on the other
shooting
stuff.
in the dark, life or death situation.
Right. This is one of the things that that I've noticed as an instructor as well, and I completely agree with you. Is somebody comes in, they don't know the business end from the back end, right? They're not sure how to hold the gun. They don't know anything about ammunition, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, what do I do when somebody comes into my house? We need to come up with a plan with that, but let's just read about the fundamentals. Let's learn how to load and unload. Let's learn all the basic stuff, and then we'll get to the point there. And I try to emphasize that I teach the NRA Home Firearm Safety course. I say it's rifles, shotguns, and handguns only. right? Like, it's just beginner level stuff. Here's how you don't hurt yourself. Here's how you don't hurt someone else. Here's how you load. Here's how you unload. This is all this is. Just get you familiar with it. You should take another class after this. You should call me afterwards, call you afterwards. Somebody should go take some lessons and learn how to shoot. And it's not all about, hey, I think I want to get a gun, to all of a sudden I'm some tactical Joe, the week that I buy my gun. Yeah, there's a little bit of time you need to learn how to shoot, learn some fundamentals.
And there's a lot to learn for all of us, right? It's lifelong.
Yeah.
So are we going to go in?
Let's go in and shoot. So we are...
what's it called again? On Target?
On Target in Dracut, Massachusetts.
We're
going to do some shooting. How can people find your stuff?
www.pistolpractice.com.
Cool. You're on. You can look in the camera and plug all that stuff away.
So it's pistolpractice.com. That's the book. If you want to put... I'll give your listeners free shipping if you want to, in the body of the text, include free ship 23.
All right.
Free ship
23. There we go.
On video, so you have it.
There we are. Thank you very much.
John@pistolpractice.com. You can just email me directly. And if you're a certified instructor and you're interested in becoming an affiliate, let me know. I'm trying to limit the affiliates like one to a market. Okay, what defines a market is a little gray. Sure. Because where you and I live, we have zip codes every half a mile.
Right.
Okay. But I'm really trying to respect the fact that if someone signs on as an affiliate, let's use my old town, Guilderland, New York, I'm not putting another one in Guilderland, New York.
Right.
So the sooner people engage, the better.
Sure. Cool.
Okay.
We'll go do some shooting.
Let's go do some shooting, and then we'll talk about it.
All right, so we just finished up a range session at the On Target Firearms in Dracut. We did some of the drills that we had that are in your book.
Challenges, I think we...
Challenges. Some practice.
You don't need my coaching so much as we tried out the Save the Hostage Challenge.
Yeah, so the Save the Hostage Challenge. So I'll admit, I'll put a picture up in the video here, but I Van Gogh'd one of the bad guys. Gave him a couple of ear piercings.
Indeed.
But you got out to what? You were taking out the terrorists?
When we were doing it seriously, I mean, I could take it out to about 25 or 30 feet, right?
Which I mean, this obviously passed the Tueler drill, and good enough to hit a bad guy at 30 feet. Like,
yeah, I think
you shouldn't be shooting.
Again, one of my motivations with the book is don't just shoot the same target all the time, and look at targets differently. So when I look at the hostage target, I don't see the big red hostage, right?
Right.
There's this oddly shaped black target area, and that's interesting than shooting a circle. When we shoot a circle, we just often think about distance from the center, but now it's different. Now you're kind of shooting almost a rough rectangle, and it forces you to focus on sight alignment and trigger pull. So, and then there's also the gamification. If you can come up with a challenge your friend, the 3-strike rule in the hostage target,
or at least not try to lose to your friend.
Right. And we didn't shoot through 50 rounds doing that, right?
No,
it
not
took
at
us
all.
a few minutes. We had fun, and it was still only maybe a 20 round drill. Well, maybe 30 for you, but a lot of fun.
Okay.
And on target firearms, right? I mean,
on target firearms.
Facility,
a really nice facility.
14 lanes, state-of-the-art action target.
They got ammo. They got goodies. They got. They even have the goat guns.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen those before. The goat guns are pretty cool. I've talked to the owner once. They make little guns that are real and have moving parts and have little bullets that eject out of them. And magazine releases that work. And the AR that we looked at had a suppressor, which is probably the only legal suppressor you can have in Massachusetts, is a toy suppressor or a muffler on your car. But it also had a grenade launcher on the goat gun, so that's pretty cool.
Fired a grenade launcher. I'd like to.
It's certainly on the list, but not here in occupied
I think that's a
territory.
Vegas trip for us.
That would be great. Let's take the show on the road.
Do that.
All right.
Thank you again for this.
Thank you so much.
What a pleasure.
This was great. All right, again, thank you guys for watching the show. Check out pistolpractice.com. You'll find all of John's great content there, and we will see you guys as we get the Stagecoach across America.